Good morning, colleagues, and welcome to the policy brief launch that we are about to head into. Thank you for joining us in this cold weather. For some reason, it feels colder today after the game last night. It's just our team is depressing us even more than the cold and everything else that's happening. But we must be confident and positive, and maybe next game we will pull something back, hopefully. We pray. So on behalf of the organizations that are collaborating around this policy brief, we have them listed there. The SALRO program at UCT, Center for Social Development in Africa, that's it, at UJ. And the basic package of support program that the two institutions collaborate on. The Department of Social Development, we're very honored to have the Acting Director General with us this morning to show her support for the process. We have SASA, that is part of the Social Development Cluster, and as well as NBA, Finmark Trust, who I represent, and BRAC International, who has been a partner on the Generating Better Livelihoods project over the last 3 years. So on behalf of all these organizations, welcome to this policy brief launch. We do have people online as well. I'm not sure how many they are, but we thought we should, given that it's a relatively small number of us here, that we can introduce ourselves so that we know who is in the house. I'll start. My name is Brendan Pierce. I'm the CEO of Finmark Trust. I will go this way.
My name is Anthony Kaziboni. I'm a senior researcher based at the Center for Social Development in Africa.
Good morning. It's Ismail Akowaya. I'm from the Expanded Public Works Program, Department of Public Works and Infrastructure.
Morning.
How are you? Good, sorry.
Good colleagues. My name is Sarah Makova from National Department of Agriculture.
Morning, colleagues. My name is Daniel Quinn. I'm from the Department of Employment and Labor.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Carl Fellow. I'm from the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Segren Gabunda. I'm from the Department of Employment and Labor.
Morning, everyone. My name is Gabriel Bardenost. I'm an officer of the Deputy President in the Presidency.
Morning, colleagues. I'm Bosimazi Boga from the Employment in Labor in Gauteng Province.
Good morning. I'm Lulu Madophe from Department of Employment and Labor, Head Office.
Morning. I'm Alpha Matlaku, National Department of Social Development.
Good morning. My name is Fariseni Nechisauru from Department for Employment and Labor in the province of Gauteng.
Good morning. My name is Sangri Mancha from National BSD.
Good morning, everyone. Sonia Hornsby, Department of Employment and Labor, National Office.
Morning, colleagues. My name is Samuel Maifadi from the DSP.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Hope Vivian from National Department of Social Development, responsible for sustainable livelihoods.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Lebo Uriesi from National Department of Social Development in the Children and Family Benefits Unit.
Good morning, everyone. Yusuf Mayak from National Treasury Public Finance.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lauren Graham. I'm the South African Research Chair in Welfare and Social Development here at the Center for Social Development in Africa.
Morning, colleagues. I'm Puguti Mane, Puguletu. I'm the Acting Director General for Social Development, seconded from the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation in the Presidency. Thanks.
Thank you very much, colleagues. We also have Dr. Ariane Delanoy, Deputy Director, SALRO at UCT. She's online. We won't go through the online participants now. I'm not sure. It's a bit complicated to do that. So how did we get here? Two projects.
Sorry, Brandon.
Yes. Oh, sorry, I forgot about the backbenches. Sorry, please, apologies.
According to the Immigration Act, they are
Good
undesirable.
morning, everyone. I'm a researcher at the Center for Social Development.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Recipients, the facilitator for the Rampant and GBL project.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Ambrose Semenya from the Department of Employment and Labor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tabu from
Good morning, everyone. My name is Madam, and I'm one of the UPS members.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Pumelele Lobo from Finmac Trust. I am a project lead for the Generating Better Livelihoods. Yes, thank you.
Anybody else that I left out? In case I offend anyone else this morning. Thank you very much. Colleagues, we have an agenda for the day. I think it's quite a short agenda. We hope to get you out of here by around 12 today. And after we finish, we will be able to have some networking and some snacks and all of those things. Lauren, for comfort breaks, can you just direct to where we need to go?
And just to add my warm welcome to every single one of you for being here with us at as our Vice Chancellor would say, the great University of Johannesburg. And it's wonderful to host you here. Please do help yourselves to some tea and coffee over here, and we will have some snacks coming in a little later. And the restrooms, if you go out of the store, immediately to your right is the men's, and over past the staircases, the ladies is on that side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. So how did we get here? I think the basic package of support program and the Generating Better Livelihoods program started independently of each other a few years ago. I think the basic package of support is older and started before the GBL project. And basically those projects, and we'll say a lot more about the projects, was about the basic package of support program. The way I understand it was about trying to figure out what is the basic support that unemployed youth in particular need to progress their lives into employment or micro businesses. So that's what the pilot project was meant to figure out, and we'll share a little bit more. The GBL project, Generating Better Livelihoods project, is a project that uses the BRAC graduation model that has been developed started in Bangladesh, elsewhere, and looking at how do you get people out of poverty, how do you improve people's livelihoods, especially the ultra poor, and that's the name of that project. Started to look at the linkages and how do we link social grant recipients. As we know, it's a growing population. How do we link them to economic opportunities so that they can get their dignity back and become independent, sustainable young people? So that's what the GBL started with. And as we went along, actually, we're contracting the UJ, the center, to be our learning partner on the GBL project. We didn't at that point realize that actually there's a project they're running that is similar to what we're doing. And that's how we found each other. And so Lauren and Anthony are the ones that kind of linked us up. And through the process realized that actually the similarities and the learnings that are coming through are actually very similar. In terms of what people need and the extent to which, and of course, what we then decided is that's the learning that we need to feed into the policy debate around how do we deal with unemployment in the country. And that learning, and of course, we are all, I think, disciples of evidence-based policy making, so that we can generate the evidence from the ground, practical evidence, and feed that into the policy debate and see whether we can come up with a national policy structure that takes into account all of these learnings. I emphasize evidence policy making because we've seen in other parts of the world, especially the largest economy in the world, where evidence-based policy making is thrown out of the window and we can see the results that happen. So hopefully we don't go down that route. So that's kind of where we come from. And you will see in the agenda we have some voices from the ground. So we have a coach who works on the GBL project that will share her experiences of working with young people. And we have participants in the BPS project that will share their own experiences, and you will be able to get a sense of, a taste of what's actually happening on the ground. And it's not just us making up this stuff ourselves, right? So you will see that. I think, colleagues, the unemployment crisis in South Africa is clear. I don't think we need to dwell on those numbers. Again, every quarter labor force survey from Stats SA just makes the situation worse as we go along, including the last one where there was quite a big drop in unemployment. These are scary. I mean, I'm not surprised that the anti-migrant demonstrations have gotten so much youth support across the country. I'm not sure if you've seen those demonstrations that have happened. For me, that's part of our youth unemployment ticking time bomb. Some say it's already exploding. If you had youth who are employed and have work, I'm not sure you would have gotten such big numbers in those marches and such destruction that happens as a result of that. So I think that ticking time bomb, well, the time bomb may have already started exploding. In South Africa, we have a myriad of programs to address unemployment. There are so many of them. I won't go through all of them. Public employment programs, youth stimulus projects. You've got Harambee, you've got National Youth Service, youth activation programs. Yet the problem keeps growing. And of course, we're spending billions of rands annually on these programs, but the problem keeps growing. Of course, part of the explanation for this is the fact that our economy is not growing at the rate that we need to absorb the unemployed. I was reading something from an economist the other day who was saying that even if South Africa grows at 2% annually, it will take us 50 years to deal with the unemployed and the unemployed, or absorb the unemployed. Now, clearly, that's not tenable. I think other problems are linked to the information asymmetries between those who are looking for jobs and those that do have jobs on offer. And we have another number of programs who are trying to address that. The skills mismatch, I think, is another big thing that I think we need to look at. Especially if you look at South Africa's economy, and we have economists in the house who will help us with this. South Africa's economy is becoming or has become more service-led economy. And service-led economy, the kind of skills requirements are at a much higher level. And so that skills gap, I think, is a problem. We pick it up in the projects where the GBL project participants' average education attainment is grade 11, so have not completed matric. And so that just shows you how that skills mismatch begins to come through. Clearly waiting for economic growth to solve this problem is a fool's errand, right? I don't think we can wait for 50 years. Our economy is not even growing at 2%. By the way, I think it's still a long way off from 2%. Huge progress being made, but lots of setbacks coming to us from the international world. And I think even if we are able to grow at that pace, many will still be left behind because of these problems. Problems of low motivation, psychosocial problems, the skills mismatch is I think something that we shouldn't be holding out for our economy, formal economy growing to absorb all of those. And we need to be looking at what is the informal sector, what can the informal sector contribute more towards creating more sustainable livelihoods? And if you look at the size of our informal sector, although it actually, if you look at the numbers, employs quite a considerable number of people in South Africa, the informal sector. It's still relatively smaller than other comparable markets. If you look at Nigeria, Brazil, India, where the informal sector makes a much bigger contribution, is I think something that we need to be looking at. So these two programs take a more holistic approach to individual participants and understands that poverty is multidimensional. It's not only one. It's not only about income or a job. There are all these things that conspire to lock people into a cycle of poverty, and these programs try to address it in a holistic way, as opposed to other programs that just focus on either a public employment opportunity or linking you to a job, and doesn't take into account all these other factors that you and I know from our personal lives are important to keep us in jobs and to make those interventions sustainable. And the experience is that there are large numbers of young people who need a lot more support than what is currently on offer. Not all of them, but significant numbers of them are demotivated, have not worked in their lives yet, don't have access to the information that is pumped out by national programs. So there's that gap that you need to deal with. And so they are a lot more intensive. They are not more labor intensive. But we think, and I think global evidence is coming through, that that's the way you need to deal with unemployed and deal with this issue in a more holistic way. Okay, so I've said a lot. This policy launch is a series of policy interventions that we want to launch as the experience with the projects unfold. And so this is the first one in line. We hope we'll have a few more this year, and we'll get the learnings coming directly into these policy briefs and share them. So it's our hope that this series and this conversation contributes to the national policy debate around how do we need to line up and get more coordination between all these different programs that happens. Where do these approaches fit in, and who should they be targeted to? And in my mind, the most vulnerable, rural women, people that have given up looking for jobs. So we hope that that's what this debate and policy discussion ends up in. The DG was saying part of our meeting today is basic income package discussion, and so hopefully she can take some of this with her as well. But colleagues, that's some of the background. That's how we found ourselves here. Lauren, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I think you've covered everything that we've spoken about, and
okay,
positioned it really well.
I hope, Anthony, we haven't now stolen your thunder. But we're gonna kick off by some opening remarks by the acting Director General of the Department of Social Development, Advocate Gugulethu Timani. I must say, a breath of fresh air since she's come into the job. The kind of passion and enthusiasm that she has shown for this work, I think, is quite exemplary. One hopes that the acting gets removed at some point, and then that's what you do. So, Acting DG, please give us your opening remarks.
Yeah, thanks. The colleagues that are here, and I know that I've heard that there's some colleague from UCT, UJ, online, yes. Social Development, the departments that are here, all the partners and those who are coming from the ground, we are all welcome. Well, I have been appointed effectively from 1st of April because I'm coming from GPME, as I've indicated, colleagues. Well, I think maybe they said come and assist on social development because one of your profession is social work. So I'm a social worker by profession, but then later did law Lastly, human rights. Because of the cases I used to get when I was working under the Reconstruction and Development Program of Mandela in local government, where you get different cases. People are fighting for family houses, succession, maintenance, and all that. Yeah, then I took advantage of development economics as well. So basically, that's my background, colleagues, and thanks for the opportunity that I've been requested. I know that I had a session early in the morning because the diary is very, very packed. We are expected to present, we just got an invite yesterday. We are expected to present to the Select Committee in Parliament on the 17th, but we got an invite yesterday evening. And we still have to brief the principals, we still have to submit, so we had to coordinate an agent meeting on the matters, on the basic income grant, obvious, which is linked to why we are here. We've got another task, and they said we need to, there's another task where we are expected to appear before a portfolio committee with CETAs in terms of the skills development, which links to what we are talking about, but also with small business, a small business, not just only for those who are in communities, colleagues, even those who are in shelters and outside, because there are those who are stuck on the gender-based violence space because of economic, socio-economic opportunities. So there's that accountability that we need to present in Parliament. Well, I think there's very good offers that come from CETAs, which it will link on this work, colleagues, because you know that the CETAs were established to provide skills development in our country. And I know that one of the issues as well in the afternoon, we are meeting in terms of employment of social workers. It is another issue. We've been having strings, because much as we want to deal with issues of employment, we need not to forget the issues of the social needs in our country. It's a fact. And we know that at some stage, social work was declared as a scarce and critical skills. There were bursaries that were offered, but now people are stuck while we have social needs in our country. So there's that interrelationship between what we are presenting today and what you find in communities. Well, I think one of my comments, colleagues, it's about, we know that we are in government, and President always emphasized that you must work with everyone. If you want to pursue the developmental agenda, make sure that you work with academia, because there's that empirical evidence or research that will come from the academia that we need to appreciate, because you can't implement something that's not well researched. You'll be just wasting your time. But also work with other government departments, hence the colleagues are here, work with government entities. I know that we have session with Transnet Foundation, ESCOM, Rainwater, and now we are expanding our scope to private sector, the banks and other organizations just to work together. And international partners as well. We appreciate the work that is done by Finmark Trust through the BREC, and we had a session with them. And I said to them, yes, this is very good. I'm more interested on the action plan. So because as government, sometimes you sit in conferences, it's good to have these policy discussion, but after this, what's next? Because we need to be seen doing something. We need to be seeing numbers changing. But then you ask yourself, we're doing something, but the numbers from the Stats SA is telling us something that we are not winning this war. And then what is that we're not doing? Okay, I think it's a very important discussion. But as you know that the government we have a National Development Plan 2030, and we are just few months away towards 2030. And I see my colleague, Joseph Fila, who is responsible. And we are related because we come from the Nhlapo clan. I come from the Nhlapo clan from my maternal side. So I think what is very important, colleagues, is the National Development Plan, which was an aspiration of South Africa, and it was a consultative process. And then we have obvious what we used to call it medium-term strategic framework. We had many priorities. With the 7 administration, we're since congested to say let's have 3 priorities. The priority on economy, inclusive growth, the priority on poverty alleviation, how do we improve the living standards of South Africans, which links why we are here. And then there's a priority of building of a capable, because you might think of economy, poverty. For as long as you don't have a capable state, you may not achieve that. Ethical state as well, you can see what's happening in Madanga. So we really need the ethical public service. And the developmental state, who will understand the developmental agenda. And we really appreciate, colleagues, the partnership, because that's what the president said. You need to make sure that you work with everyone. The partnership with social development, with UCT, academia, Finmark Trust, and everyone. And I think what has been an issue, and we've been talking about this, but I think now we need to put in action. And I know that the president will say, don't tell us what you know. That's what the president always says. Don't tell us what you know. Tell us what are you doing with what you know. Because if you still tell us that there's high unemployment, inequality, it's like you're wasting our time. We have appointed you as officials so that you implement the policies of government. The results must show whether we are winning the war or we are not winning the war. And I know that the research it also outlined that we are still not where we want to be in terms of addressing issues of inequality, unemployment, and poverty. But I think what is more important, colleagues, because the main challenge is the fragmentation. It is for as long as we are not coordinated, we are not integrated, starting with government. And I've been preaching that gospel to say, let's, as government first, let's be coordinated. And then let's work with other stakeholders. And I know that we were at National Treasury last week. And when I was talking to DDG Brenda, there was a session where there was a World Bank. World Bank, they've analyzed, they've conducted kind of a study that says, government, you are spending billions on these social programs, whether it's your presidential employment stimulus, your NYS, your NDA, your EPWP, your Home to Work program. We are just disintegrated. We spend billions, but the return on investment is just minimal. And we are not even talking about sustainable jobs. You are talking about, those poverty alleviation of 4 months, 6 months. I come from local government, so we're implementing this EPWP. We know how it works. We are in the system for 6 months or so, or for a year, you exit, go back to poverty. There's no sustainability in terms of after we have been to this EPWP, what skill sets. And I know that where we are forced to say, when we have permanent position, we need to prioritize this EPWP. Because some of them, they've been in the system for quite a long time. I think the issue of sustainability is a challenge. But I think we want to say as social development, because we've partnered with the Finmark Trust and the social development and the UCT, we want to continue with that partnership. But I think for us, colleagues, even when you look at the medium-term strategic framework, we have seen department presenting on processes, not on results. Then it is a problem. So we have to make sure that with this medium-term development plan, we are more outcome-based. The outcome that will change the lives of the people and contribute to the dignity of the people. People must have employment. And I know that also the issues of SRD grants, colleagues, government had to take a decision around COVID because we know that the COVID came with challenges. Everything was just stalled. And then there's 350. And now it's 370. But the cabinet has given us a mandate and says social development, go and work with other departments, work with entities, work with NPOs, work with private sector, work with international partners, work with academia, remove people from being grant recipient. Colleagues, we can't live on 350 or 270, it's a fact. Even when you go to a restaurant, sometimes you pay 500. So we really need to make sure that that cabinet decision, colleagues, it should be implemented. But you cannot implement it as government alone. We need to implement that cabinet decision with partners. Hence, we are also called by Parliament to say, come and account to us. So we really appreciate this discussion. I think for me, what is more important, after we have received what the research says, what is it that we are doing about that information? Some of us, we come from the school of theory and practice. For as long as you have not put what the research says in practice we are just wasting time. And it's like the notes, because you still have to refresh in terms of your notes. And some of us, we are still engaging with, for me, my social work lecturer is like I'm accounting to her almost every day in terms of whether are you doing what I taught you. I still engage with my first supervisor in the profession, where it's like you are being monitored, you are being accountable to say what is that you are doing in government and all that. So colleagues, I think we just need to work together. I know that except partnering with FinMark, already since I have acted or started acting, we have met with Siriti. Maybe some of you may know the Siriti. They are doing wonders. They are doing wonders on the ground. We met them while I was at DPME on the issues of floods. They are running huge notes and with numbers. And when you exit on their program, you don't just exit, they skill you so that when you exit, you come out with skills. So I think we want to make sure that we engage with, we have met with TG, Marine Trust as well. They've got an element of development, except the issues of substance abuse. We've met with FinMark, we've met with ESCOM. They are also doing wonders, the CSI of ESCOM, particularly on this migration of young people from grant recipient and those who are grant recipients in terms of giving the scholarship. They've made a promise to say we are willing to give the scholarship from your grant pool, but also in terms of the skills that we offer. So we want to make sure that whatever that you do, colleagues, it becomes practical. I think as I close, there's one of the development activists as well, they are doing wonders, colleagues. They are setting up something very huge in Northwest, and we had to link them with Department of Social Development, but also with DTECT, because in Northwest, I just want to read something, the work that, because I know them, they are doing lots of wonders, colleagues, in terms of the work that they are doing. I just want to show you something. Just give me 1 minute. It's a huge, Charlotte maybe may not see it, it's a huge, we have to link them with DTECT. And they are focusing on food security, and Department of Agriculture is here. They'll be focusing on skills development. Issues of skills is very critical. It's an integrated development. They are speaking on agro-processing. They are speaking on enterprise development in one land. They are speaking on youth and women empowerment. They are speaking on agricultural production. And then they're speaking on investment attraction, and then they're speaking on rural economic and transformation. So up to 500 hectares is under construction. So a larger development footprint is being explored to maximize economic impact, agricultural production, skills development, enterprise creation, and those are NPOs who are on the ground, colleagues who are doing wonders. We'll be going to 3 NPOs, and we want to invite, I know that FinMark Trust, you are one of the stakeholders, but maybe those who are interested colleagues will be embarking in June. That project of Isingwa Setu, of that bakery that started through the 370 colleagues, we will be visiting it not later than June. We want to visit them, we want to understand how they are progressing and where the challenges are, so that as government, we must work together. And then we can even replicate the work. So what I'm trying to say, colleagues, there's so much that is happening, but we cannot do that alone. And we need to, whatever that we do, we need to do it practical, but the numbers should be telling, in terms of how we are dealing with poverty, unemployment, and inequality. So at social development, colleagues, we are committing to the developmental agenda of this country. We want to see numbers changing. We want to see lives being transformed. We want to make sure that the issues of human dignity that you find in the Constitution, people must feel it and it must be practicalized. So I think those are the remarks from the social development. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you very much, DG. Yeah, there's a lot to be done. I think 2 issues that you raised which are critical. The issues around coordination and lining up our activities so we maximize the impact of the huge investments that we've made is a critical one. The second one is the issue of scaling to get to the kind of numbers that we talk about. Now, of course, I'll be the first to caution that there's no quick fix here. It's taken us 30, maybe 40 years to get to where we are. But I think if we don't have a way of scaling this work so that we reach more people, I think all these individual initiatives that may be very successful in a small environment but cannot scale nationally, I think that's one of the key challenges. And I think maybe part of the next policy series would need to reflect on some of that. I know BPS is involved with that as well, and we are looking at that issue quite centrally with different DSD provinces as well as the issue of bringing other government departments to coordinate better at a local site level where participants are. It doesn't help you coordinate at the national level. It needs to permeate to where participants are. So thank you very much for those, opening remarks. We're going to move now to the presentation of the policy brief. Dr. Anthony Kazibone, who introduced himself, senior researcher here at the University of Johannesburg, will present it. I think he's the best to present it because he has fingers in all of these, in both projects, and has been doing part of our learning partner work. Anthony, over to you.
Many thanks, Brendan, for your remarks. DG, I acknowledge you. We acknowledge you, and many thanks for coming. We chatted a bit about the circumstances around your arrival. I hope you have a better day. I think I'm the least qualified person to talk about this.
Then none of us are qualified.
You are not. And the reason being, there's been a lot of work that's been done over the past few years by research centers engaging FINMA Trust, engaging departments, and working vigorously, rigorously together. Writing this policy brief was a fascinating experience because we imagined that it would be a short piece and precise, and as it remains short, this is the shortest we could. There was so much knowledge, so much depth and richness that came out of this. What I'm appreciative of, and what you mentioned, Brendan, and this is what I strongly urge government, is to appreciate the significance of evidence. The evidence contained in this report comes from, as they say, the horse's mouth. I was fortunate enough to participate in some of the data collection processes where I actually interviewed some of these participants. So I'm not writing from the Johannesburg Business School, where you were based in an office, and I'm typing away. We talk to people. We understand them as they speak within their context. And from this, we put together this brief, which is, as Brendan has mentioned again, part of a series. And please be on the lookout. As soon as you get that email, just respond and book a date with us. We're launching the first brief, and it's titled From Margins to Mainstream, In-Person Support as a Policy Lever for Livelihood Outcomes. At the heart of this brief, we're asking the simple question: why are so many young people still excluded from meaningful participation in the economy, despite the existence of support in the form of grants, training programs, employment initiatives, amongst others? And South Africa as a country has invested significantly both in social protection and labor market intervention. And as we see people around here, I was happy to note that we have at least 7 people from labor, employment and labor. The representation is good. And it's important for those discussions to transpire where government is represented by various departments. Amongst these people who are receiving assistance are grant recipients. many of them young. You mentioned statistics. My next slide is about stats, so I'm not going to bore you with the figures, but I'm just going to give an overall landscape of what South Africa is. At the core of this argument in this brief is that in-person support matters. We are valuing the role that critical actors, frontline actors have as people and as they engage people who are marginalized. It matters because people who are furthest from the labor market often face multiple and interwoven barriers. And these barriers cannot simply be addressed by accessing resources or information alone. They require guidance, they require encouragement, coaching, referrals, mentoring, and ongoing support to move them from social protection towards more sustainable livelihood. South Africa experiences a lot of challenges, and I always cite the NDP 2030 because it conceptualizes the triple challenge. Triple challenge, poverty, unemployment, and inequality. When we talk about poverty, we know that South Africans, over 50% go to bed hungry. We know that. We know that when we talk about unemployment, we have an unemployment crisis, and the youth are disproportionately affected. And you mentioned the recent anti-immigrant protests. So we do have challenges. South Africa is also the world's most unequal country with the highest Gini coefficient of plus 0.65. Johannesburg is the most unequal city in the world. Johannesburg. So when we think about the persistence of exclusion, we should ask the question, when opportunity exists and they're provided for through interventions, why is it that some people still struggle? And it's critical for us to look at what we look at as the missing link. Unemployment is not only a consequence of the lack of access to jobs, job creation or skills shortages. And many people face multiple intersecting, overlapping barriers that make it difficult for them not only to access, but to sustain opportunities. We're talking about poverty, food insecurity, limited access to education and training. And we learned, as Brendan indicated, that the participants in the GBO program barely have matric. How do we expect them to get formal employment in South Africa? Those are the questions we need to think about. Here we are, astronomical transport costs, distances from economic opportunities, caregiving responsibilities. What's also important to make mention of is the fact that in Africa, South Africa is no exception. Poverty wears the face of a black woman. We talk about the feminization of poverty. And compounding this is caregiving responsibilities and responsibilities linked to the household. We also have weak social networks, and we should accept that we are traumatized people. There is violence in the communities, and it does play a significant role in the interventions that need to be done, and mental health toll leading to chronic stress and anxiety. So social protection systems are intended to help mitigate these barriers, while active labor market programs seek to connect people to employment, training, and other economic opportunities. However, these systems have operated separately. Resultantly, opportunities may exist, but access does not automatically flow. For those furthest from the labor market, navigating fragmented programs and services can be overwhelming. The missing link is often not other program or opportunities. It is the support that helps people to navigate these systems, overcome barriers, and connect opportunities to livelihood outcomes. So Brandon has spoken a little bit about the two programs. You do have a copy of the brief. It was shared as well. It's available online. For the purposes of this conversation, I'm not really going to get into detail, but tease out more what the commonalities of these two are. So you will look at the target population or the target group. For the GBL, we have grant recipients. Do forgive me for beneficiaries there. Grant recipients who are primarily CSG and SRD recipients. The program was initially conceptualized to focus on young women, women under 35 who were recipients of the CSG. However, responding to contextual realities, the age gap was increased, and there was also an inclusion of young men. BPS focuses on needs, youth, not in employment, education, or training. And the commonality here is that both work with people furthest from economic opportunities. And the primary challenges being addressed are multiple, which prevents people from sustainable livelihoods as well as earning opportunities. So it's about economic exclusion, which is understood to be multidimensional, and it goes beyond jobs and one's skills. There's an approach which is implemented, linkage facilitation and coaching. This is in the GBL. And there's coach-based supports, which is in the BPS. And what ties this together is that both of them are person-centered. And there's a strong core focus on relational support. The frontline practitioner for the GBL are linkage facilitators and linkage champions. Linkage champions are seconded SASSA grant officials who support in the program. And the purpose of that is to ensure that they work collaboratively, but also increasingly will occupy this role, and is anticipated to play out in the near future. For the BPS, you have a youth coach, and we're fortunate to have some practitioners that will talk. When I talk about a coach, I understand that we suffered a defeat yesterday. We're not talking about a coach in that sense. But again, it's the frontline actors that are responsible for the capacitation, interlinking, and overall assistance of the participants in the program. So they play a very supportive role. And the starting point is also important to note. It's understanding a person's goal, barriers, livelihood aspirations, and that's for the GBL. And similarly for the BPS. And it begins with understanding the individual, not the opportunity. It's not working backwards to say, here it is, go for it. But who are you? What is it? How can we help you? Referrals are both important, and support is given in an ongoing process. And the key takeaway here is that the target groups are different, delivery models are slightly different, but the lesson is the same. It's people furthest from economic opportunity in need of in-person support, and how they can be assisted not only to navigate pathways into sustainable livelihoods, but to ensure that they also remain there in the long term. So just a bit about the program reach and participant profile. What you have in front of you is a map of South Africa. GBL pilot sites are in 3 provinces. Gauteng has 2, the Free State has three sites, and Free State has 2 sites, and KwaZulu-Natal has 3 sites. And as you know, many of the participants are women, and there's a very small proportion of men for the reasons that I've mentioned. For the BPS, it's 3 sites as well: Gauteng, KZN, and the Western Cape. Both programs operate in different contexts and serve different populations, but both work with groups significantly facing barriers to economic participation and exclusion from opportunity. And they work very closely with the coach. What makes these programs different from what we would call traditional approaches? So far, I've been arguing that opportunities exist to an extent, and yet many people remain unable to access them. But the question then becomes, what is different about GBL and BPS? Traditionally, many labor market and livelihood interventions operate on the assumption that if opportunities are created and information is made available, people will be able to take them up. And in other words, the model is quite simple: opportunity first, people second. But the challenge is that this assumption does not hold for many people in these programs. We have seen individuals often face multiple interwoven, interconnected barriers. They may be struggling with a wide range of issues, like I mentioned, extreme poverty, caregiving responsibilities, low confidence, adverse mental health challenges, weak social networks, or simply not knowing how to navigate these systems. In some instances, just completing a basic form. The innovation in both the GBL and BPS is that they reverse that traditional logic. So rather than starting with the opportunity, they start with the person. Understanding the person's, like I mentioned, circumstances, aspirations, strengths, and barriers. Only then does support begin where there is formal link. Through dedicated coaches, whether it's in the BPS, youth coaches, facilitators, and champions, participants receive personalized in-person support. Guidance is important, coaching is important, referrals, follow-up support. The pathway therefore becomes person, support, opportunity, sustainable outcome. What both programs are showing us is that people furthest from economic opportunity often require more. They require accompaniment, guidance, ongoing support. They require human beings. They require people. What becomes even more important is to look at what does this support actually achieve, and what have we learned? What are we learning? So I speak to you not only as a contributor to the brief, not as an academic, definitely, but somebody who spoke to the participants. The only province I wasn't able to go to for the GBL project was the Free State. I was in Gauteng, I was in KZN, Kwamashu, Madarin, and in Twalong. I was there. I spoke to people who spoke with me. So what are we learning from these programs? Despite working with different categories of people, a remarkable, consistent lesson is emerging. Policy discussions often focus on creating jobs, training, enterprise support, or access to services. I'm not saying they're not important. These are all important. However, the evidence we got from both programs suggests that opportunities alone are often insufficient for those furthest from economic participation. It's heart-wrenching when you talk to somebody who's broken. It's heart-wrenching. It's extremely difficult. The interviews gave me, as an outsider, a snippet. You know, when you watch before you watch a movie, you watch the trailer, which is a minute. And the movie, if it's a Marvel movie, it's 3 hours long. So they try and sell you the whole movie in a minute. I had a minute because the interviews were about an hour to an hour and a half long. The coaches are with these people every day. Maybe not physically, but they engage them every day. And it's impressive what that they're doing. That should never be underestimated. What participants frequently need is support that helps them convert opportunities provided into outcomes. They need support to build confidence. I mentioned the word broken. You find people who are low-spirited, depressed, have lost faith and belief in themselves. So they need support psychologically, referrals. They need support to access services. Whether those services relate to psychosocial well-being, employment, training, financial inclusion, enterprise development. And perhaps most importantly, they need support to sustain opportunities once they've accessed them. Getting an opportunity, getting a job, starting an initiative, a project, it's the start, it's the beginning. What both programs are showing is that these processes do not happen automatically. Like a domino effect, you get somebody, you talk to them, and then everything spills over. What both programs are showing is that there's an importance in in-person support, the in-person mechanism. The opportunity itself is not the innovation. Opportunity is not the innovation. Innovation lies in relational support that helps people overcome barriers, navigate complexity, build confidence, and sustain progress over time. In short, people do not simply need opportunities. They need support to make those opportunities work. I live by a maxim, and the maxim is, don't pray for opportunities. Pray already when the opportunity presents itself. Because it will. But when it does, you must be ready. So coaches help them to get ready. So what are the successes to date? Some statistics for you. I promised that I wasn't going to do numbers today, but sorry. The program has also generated important outcomes. So I think just to make sure on the same page, having discussed the logic of the programs and the importance of in-person support, it's important to try and see where we are, what has happened. Whilst the initial phase of the DPS came to fruition, came to an end, the GBL is still in rolling out. And starting with the GBL, we see that there are some noted early successes. 185 participants have accessed employment and learning opportunities. I do make mention of the fact that this was at about a month ago. So at the rate at which we're going, I'm sure they can add a little bit. Across areas such as early childhood development, agriculture, sewing, hospitality, built environment, hair and beauty. The program has also supported entrepreneurial development. 541 participants have progressed through business development initiatives, including startup, training, pricing, costing, mentoring, and business support. It was fascinating for me that even some of the coaches mentioned the significance of participating in some of these initiatives. Importantly, the program is not only producing economic outcomes. Over 1,300 participants have strengthened their resilience, life skills, participating in programs focused on personal mastery, parenting, financial literacy, gender-based violence awareness, as well as substance abuse. Looking at the BPS, within 4 weeks and 4 coaching sessions, 40% of participants had moved from learning into earning opportunities. That's commendable, despite many having long periods of unemployment before the program. Many participants have also taken up self-employment opportunities and continue to receive support as they develop their businesses. The program has also generated important well-being outcomes. The proportion of participants displaying signs of anxiety fell from 37% at program entry to 21% after 3 coaching sessions, with similar reductions observed in levels of psychological stress or distress. Participants also reported a strong awareness of available support services and a greater willingness to access them. So this snapshot presents findings that suggest that programs are doing more than simply connecting people to opportunities. They're helping people build confidence, capabilities, and support networks required to take up and sustain those opportunities. This reinforces the central message of the brief. The pathway to opportunity to livelihood outcomes is not automatic. In-person support helps make that pathway possible. Here, in terms of the key insights, this slide captures the central insights emerging from the stories that we collected and the early evidence that's been generated so far. The first change we're seeing is not always economic, but it's personal. So before participants can grow a business, take up employment, or whatever other opportunities, many first need to rebuild confidence, agency. And in the other report we're finalizing, several participants mentioned, and I quote, loss of direction. They expressed that they did not have a sense of direction. So this matters because people who are furthest from the labor market often arrive carrying more than unemployment. Because that's what we see, right? Oh, you're not at work. If you get work, you become happy, you become better. And it's more complex than that. This matters because people need help. And what GBL and BPS show us is that in-person support creates conditions for people to begin to see themselves differently. So we often think of livelihood programs as moving from skills to income, but for many participants, the sequence is first confidence, agency first, direction first, and then livelihoods can follow. Put simply, person first, livelihoods follow. What does in-person support actually do? It helps people build trust, navigate complex systems, rebuild confidence, access services, manage transitions, and ultimately sustain opportunities over time. For many participants, the challenge is not opportunities, as I keep mentioning. The challenge is knowing where to go, how to access support, and how to stay on track when barriers arise. In-person support provides that bridge. It connects social protection on the one hand with economic opportunity on the other, helping people move from support and assistance towards learning, earning, and sustainable livelihoods. In short, in-person support supports fragmented services into navigatable pathways. What are the key lessons? Trust is foundational. It's important that there be trust in this relationship. You don't see the economic less, but you see the whole person. It's important to rebuild confidence and agency. What psychological barriers exist? Curate sustainable opportunities. Build navigational capacity. In-person support is indispensable. You need people. Provide it ongoing. Choosing their own path. You're not coming with what you imagine they need. You're allowing them to develop the pathways mentally to arrive at what they want. And this support must be coordinated. In terms of policy recommendations, there are 6 priority recommendations. The first one is embedded human-centered support in economic exclusion. Here, access to opportunities alone is insufficient. We need coaching, we need facilitators, and we need case management, which should be recognized as core program components rather than additional add-ons. A shift from access-based to pathway-based approaches. It's moving beyond one-off referrals to placements towards sustained support that helps participants navigate transitions and helps build longer-term license objectives. Strengthen coordination between social protection and labor market systems. So better alignment is needed between grants, social services, skills development programs, and employment initiatives to reduce fragmentation and improve participant outcomes. For the sake of time, priority intensive support for those furthest. These programs particularly focus on young women and men, as well as NEET youth, who are facing multiple barriers and need assistance. Invest in facilitation and case management capacity, and build policy around the whole person. So, as I conclude, the central lesson is that opportunities matter, but opportunities alone are not enough. We need to ensure that people furthest from economic opportunity who face multiple and overlapping barriers get the assistance they need. And in-person assistance is critical. The goal is not simply to open doors, but to walk alongside people so that they can access, navigate, and sustain opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anthony, for taking us through quite a complex one, quite so briefly and clearly the way you articulated it. Of course, one of the elephants in the room is always going to be, I know there's a move towards digitization to assist with scale and to reach more people. The question is, how does this coaching, how does it complement, or how does digital complement the face-to-face coaching that we need? That is the key question. We're not the only ones. The whole world is grappling with this issue about what is the balance that you, because digital referrals alone are not going to work. It's going to exclude millions of young people, just for the reasons that you outlined. But thank you very much for that. I know there are many questions that I'm sure would want to come, but I wonder whether we shouldn't go to the ground first and get inputs from the coach, one of the coaches, as well as a participant, and then let's have a conversation. And Lauren is going to facilitate that session. You want to come and sit here? I'll sit where you are.
Okay.
So Lauren will take us through the next session, and then I think we can have a conversation. So I also forgot to say there's snacks and stuff here if you want to just help yourself, please. Coffee and tea and water.
And I might kick Anthony out of his chair so that we can now privilege the people who bring the expertise from the ground. And I'm going to ask Ms. Mosebetsi to join me up here. Ms. Mosebetsi is a GBL linkage facilitator with Finmark Trust. So she's got on-the-ground experience of actually delivering this coaching, this linkage facilitation, and has a lot of on-the-ground experience with the kinds of challenges that the participants of GBL experience and what it takes to engage with these participants and walk the talk with them over time. So very much welcome. We're very grateful to have your expertise here with us.
Thank you.
To start off with, can you tell us a little bit about what are the challenges that the participants that you work with experience? Is it just about finding opportunity, or what else are they experiencing when you engage with them?
Okay. I think the biggest of them all is mental health and food insecurity, social well-being, the dynamics of families in the areas that they come from. And as well as, I think the DG mentioned it, the unemployment rate that they're facing, but mainly it's because of the skills mismatched. Because I think what is being brought to the ground is not what the ground actually wants. Or needs, yes.
So what are some of the things that you've had to do with the participants to get them onto a stable footing to be able to start building sustainable livelihoods?
Okay. For one, we had to, when I profile them, one of the things that I start off with is that you are actually my participant and not my beneficiary. So that what I'm trying to get to is that you need to participate in whatever that I'm bringing to the table. You're not just going to receive, but I need you to partake on whatever it is that will go through. And then I had to take others, or mostly 95% of them, through mental health and counseling sessions, because I've had to participate or deal with participants that are drug addicts. Some had gone through GBV and others had gone through food instability, and that made them move out of homes and move into boyfriends' homes. So GBV obviously had to be one of the things that were brought in. So I had to refer others to the DSD for counseling and others to Lifeline. And I think mostly DSD played a pivotal role because they've got social workers, they've got food insecurity department where I had to refer, and then they get food parcels. And as well as Department of Agriculture, because they've got a backyard garden initiative that they have. And so that what it does, it gives them tools to actually plant in their own backyard, so they generate their own food. So they're not just being handed over things, but they take part in alleviating their own poverty.
Right. I think it's really, you're pointing to so many of these complexities, and it's really interesting to hear you talk about how 95% of the people you're working with, it's mental health support, it's social support services. And I think we really do underestimate the psychological and social costs of poverty on people. The constant chronic stress of having to not know where your next meal is coming from erodes something within a person. The experience of what is a structural problem of unemployment gets individualized as I have failed. And that has serious consequences on mental health, and I think we completely underestimate that when we're working with unemployment interventions. So thank you. The other thing that I really appreciate about what you're saying is you're not offering necessarily the counseling yourself. You're saying there is this service over here, I can refer you there. There is that service over there, I can refer you there. So it's about making what already exists on the ground efficient and work better for the people who need it most. And I think that, when we're thinking about scale and we're thinking about how do we scale such a high-touch human intervention, we've got to think of the efficiencies that it saves, that those services are then reaching the people they're meant to be reaching. They're doing the things they're meant to be doing, rather than piecemeal and expecting people to figure it out for themselves. And do you want to share maybe what are some of the greatest successes that you've experienced? What are you most proud of?
What I'm most proud of is, I think, 2 of my participants. One that was a drug addict, went through all the stages. I think Mr. Pierce spoke of the graduation that we go through as GBL. She was a drug addict and she had so many mental issues. But now she's a proudly assistant chef, about to graduate from Bamsanda, one of the skill centers that is funded by the DST. And another one that suffered from GBV is now a garment construction maker. She sews school uniforms, also benefited from Bamsanda, the skill center. So that on its own, to me, it means that I've done something positive. Because I think one of the things that I love saying is that when you scale up, because I had scaling up, when I scale up or when I do profile other participants, I know that I've made a difference in someone's life, because to me it's not just about numbers, but the impact that I'll leave when I move from one participant to the next.
Wonderful. Can we give you a huge round of applause? And now I'm going to ask Ms. Mofokeng to join us up here. And she is a BPS participant. So you're hearing it from the other side, not from the coaches or facilitators side, but from the participant side. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. And would you be willing to share with us what were some of the challenges that you were experiencing before joining the basic package of support?
Thank you for your time. The challenges that I experienced before joining the BPS, it's that I didn't have information, lack of information, let me see, lack of resources whenever probably I wanted to apply for my whatever opportunities that I needed. And the thing, I think support was one of the things that I didn't have, and guidance, because I was all over the place. Each and every opportunity that I came across, I did apply for it, like not aligning, actually, having like a direct route that I took.
And before you joined the basic package of support, were you feeling hopeful about your future, or were you feeling like, where am I going? How were you feeling before you met up with your coach for the first time?
I was frustrated, like I was all over the place. Yes, I'm saying each and every opportunity that I came across, I would go for it. I would like go for it. Yes.
I think it's such an important point, because we often hear in the popular discourse, oh, these young people that just hop from one learnership to another. And I actually commend young people for doing that. There's opportunity there. I'm using my agency and I'm taking whatever opportunity is available to me. But without that guidance to know what is my next step, I'm going from welding to ECD to something else and not building up the skills. Yeah, and so I think we must stop saying horrible things about young people who are using their agency to take up opportunities. what do you feel was really, well, how did you experience the coaching when you connected with your coach? What were some of the shifts you experienced? When you connected with your coach, how did things change for you?
At first, my coach advised me to do a vision board, whereby I can restructure my path and look like for your growth and something like in future I will actually.
If you prefer to speak in your home language, you can. Don't feel you have to speak in English.
Yeah, Kuluma with your language, we interpret.
Oh, okay. Before Kikela could be PhD. Oh, actually, can you please repeat?
What were some of the things that changed for you when you met with your coach?
Oh, okay. My coach.
You teach your coach about.
Yeah, ka ulang advise on kids vision board. Okay, it's a vision board. Ka structure go okay. In fact, this plan ke batla ipona ke le kae. What I love. Ne ke sebetsa back then ka kena leadership niya ya plumbing. After all, ya fela ka dula hae ka khutlela ha PPS ansang advisor. Okay, fine. Right now, which part do you want, like what you want to approach? I then went back to school. The mobiles were there, like supporting the applications. I did apply, go UNISA, I did my certificate in law. I did last year I completed it, and currently I'm busy and like I enroll for my LLP.
No. So you're currently studying. That's fantastic. And where do you think you'll be going in the future?
Yeah, I want to see myself like kind of like this.
For a DG, maybe.
You heard the DG has a law background as well as social work. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Just to summarize, colleagues, where she was speaking one of the African languages. So what she was saying, the coach really assisted to come up with a vision board. That's number one. And to set the vision in terms of where you want to see yourself in 5 years' time. And what is that you love, maybe your passion. And then she says that she was part of the leadership of Pambili. Then she went at home, but then she came back to GPL. And then she was asked to say, what is that you want to focus on? And then she has just now finished a certificate in law. Now she'll study to be a lawyer. So that's a summary. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Colleagues, I think the key message we've been wanting to get across is that the journey towards sustainable livelihoods is so much more complex than just offering opportunities. And the linkages between social protection and social welfare services and active labour market programs, whether they are sitting in the Department of Employment and Labour or public employment or wherever they're sitting, those connections are absolutely crucial if we are wanting people to journey from being furthest from the labour market to finding sustainable livelihood strategies for themselves. And that coordination must, of course, happen at the national level, but importantly, it has to happen at the local level. And it's the linkage facilitators and the youth coaches and the mobilizers that actually make that happen. And we can do digital, but it's not going to help many people. It's got to go hand in hand with in-person support. And DG, I was really excited to hear that you have a social work background, because I really feel very passionately that it is the social service professionals and paraprofessionals who have these skills that are sitting unemployed, many of them, but who really know how to draw alongside a person, how to refer, make active referrals to services, how to draw in partners that can crowd around the support that people need to be able to do that. And so, yeah, I think we'll open it up to some discussion, and I've got some questions for a couple of the people around the table. And you should know that you're going to be called on, and then we'll open that up a little bit more broadly. I'm going to start with Ms. Josephilda and Klaar, who I know as Mum J, having worked closely with her through her leadership of the DWG and the G20 process. But from your experience, your role is around social protection and social cohesion in DPME. And I wonder what your reflections are on what we've shared today, particularly around coordination gaps and looking at the various initiatives that are around there and these recommendations that have come up. If you can share one or two thoughts about your reflections.
Okay. I was telling Lulu here and reminding her that I think we went with her to Germany to look at, we were responsible for the youth policy, to look at what they do. And one of the things that they raised was this person-to-person coaching and handling. And the coach was telling us that they even phone at 6 o'clock to say, are you awake? Are you ready? This is waiting for you, and so on. So great, we thought that was great. The challenge, and you raised this already, is that with about 4.7 million unemployed people, is this visible? Is it feasible for South Africa? Because many of these interventions exist. I was even asking Lulu, sorry, I keep referring to you, Lulu, to remind me what employment services do. And one of the things that they do is indeed give a counseling to young people who are, who do not know what needs to be done. So the question I have is the scalability. There's nothing wrong with the intervention itself. It is the scalability, particularly looking at the fact that, and you've raised this, that we cannot even hire social workers. The National Development Plan has said we need about 55,000 social work professionals, but we cannot hire them. We've come up with a policy, we've done all sorts of things, but the implementation thereof and enabling these connections, these human touch connections that will help young people and point them would mean, in the case of South Africa with millions of young people unemployed, literally an army that needs to be hired to enable that. Now, the second very quick question I had was that in 1994, there was about 20% unemployment, and these barriers that you mentioned existed even then. I mean, Black people in particular did not have connections. Black people were poor. They were even less skilled than they are now, etc. But we had less unemployment. So it is extremely important that as we do this initiative and we think of how we're going to scale it up, because demand will rise. We need to ensure that the jobs and these opportunities get created, so that we don't have young people have a vision board, including going to upskilling themselves, and they come out, they are in the same boat that they were in earlier, because this other leg, we did not ensure that it moves. And lastly, it is extremely important that we get young people in some form of job, I don't want to say a job, but having that brings dignity. And it is extremely good for people who measure social cohesion like I do, because once a person is excluded, then there's no social cohesion, there's no peace, and there is wastage of potential. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very, very much. You mentioned public employment support and the services, and I am going to then take it to Mr. Sagrin Govender, who heads up public employment support services at the Department of Employment and Labour, and just ask for your reflections. We know that public employment support is crucial in this picture, and the work that you do there, and when we were together in KZN a couple of months ago, how excited your teams were about this kind of work, because they know this. They face this every single day. They're trying to do the best they can to provide this kind of counselling, etc. And yet you yourselves are constrained in terms of numbers and the numbers of people that are walking through the doors of labour centres and the capacity that you have to be able to offer that kind of support. So I wonder from your perspective how these policy recommendations resonate with the work that you're doing in PES and how it shapes your thinking about PES services.
Okay, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So maybe just for context, in the Department of Employment and Labour, we are a national department. We have 126 labour centres across the country. There are 400 service points, and we also run an online channel for employment support via what we call the ESSA system. So basically what we experience every day is exactly what you've discussed today. We are seeing the face of this problem through our counsellors. We have 126 psychologists on the ground. They're all registered with the Health Practitioners Council of South Africa, and they provide this support daily. So everything that Anthony referred to in his policy brief is what we experience daily. And we can tell you, if you just saw a microcosm of the problem, we see this on a massive scale every day. So we service about 1 million people through labour centres on an annual basis. That's people coming to look for jobs, okay, and get advice. We also have a relationship with about 126,000 employers that try to provide employment opportunities to the unemployed people. And what we can see is behind all of these successes that you've seen in the policy brief, there's also the changing nature of work, right? The labor market is fast changing. So we're seeing the growth in the platform economy. We're seeing various trends, AI, you all know, right? And various other trends in the labor market that's actually destroying entry-level jobs. And so what we are seeing is that because it's almost a condition to get unemployment insurance assistance, you have to register as a work seeker. So we're seeing those numbers rise dramatically. Okay, for the first time, our counsellors have started to counsel more than 300,000 people per annum. Okay, so we were doing around 150,000 on an annual basis about 2 years ago. That number has grown to 350,000 now. That's because the demand is getting better. We are trying to innovate as much as we can, and through the presidential program, the PYEI program, they put in another 400 psychologists to assist labor centers to actually provide counseling services. And I think the point that was being made earlier on, that there is no lack of supply outside. Okay, so when we created 400 internship positions for psychologists, we had more than 1,000 applicants. And our entrance requirement for the psychologists is that you must be registered with the Health Practitioners Council of South Africa, and all of them were. We even had master's graduates, and we even had PhD graduates that were looking for these entry-level internships. So I think that kind of gives you a sense of how deep the problem is outside. And I think we've also kind of partnered with BPS to some extent through one of our sites in Atlantis, in Cape Town. And we've seen this remarkable journey that you've been talking about, because I think often in the public space, when we sit in boardrooms, we come up with policy solutions to everything. But we don't see the real face of the problem where people are not ready to take up these opportunities. And so in the department, we call these programs lift and drop programs. You know, where you provide a solution, like for example, you have There's no one from DBE, but we have teacher assistance programs, for example. It's fulfilling a very important function in that it's mopping up the gaps in employment. But the nature of the program is that you're in for 6 months and then you're out again, right? And what our psychologists have seen is that what you refer to as the mental impact, the mental health impact, this is starting to have a dramatic impact on the youth now. Because you will find that almost 106 government programs are currently running to assist with the problem of unemployment. And I think someone estimated that's about 270 billion that government is spending, right, to support these programs. But what you find is they're all lift and drop programs. Okay, so from our department runs the unemployment insurance fund. So what we see is that the people get into these programs and then 6 months later or 4 months later, they're back in the unemployment queue. And they're trying to collect unemployment. So I think that point that you made of emphasizing closer working relationships and breaking down silos is so important. For example, we have people that physically come to labor centers out of desperation. I think all the things that you said, Anthony, is true. People have barriers. They have job search barriers. They don't have funds to search for work. They don't have data to access the internet. They don't have transport. They don't know how to approach an employer. Right? They've been unemployed for so long. How do you approach this big person that's going to interview you? You have no agency. So that's why I think these programs that you're actually putting through is so important, and we totally support both programs. And we also support the view that there has to be a sustainable way and a coordinated way to actually provide support to the unemployed. I think now for the first time we've seen, as far as youth unemployment is concerned, there are more unemployed youths that are in the market now than people that are employed. Just look at the stats and say numbers. The number of youth employed are far less. So, and yet our thinking around social protection is still the same.
Yeah.
We haven't moved. And so I think some of the policy recommendations is absolutely on point, that we should actually try to relook things. And I think lastly, I think the most important thing is what Anthony also covered in his presentation. We attend about maybe 3 or 4 sessions a month in policy briefs like this. But then the big question you ask is what's next? We just go back to our boardrooms again and we continue with our own policies and programs. So I hope that can change. And hopefully in your policy brief process, you can be the catalyst to start changing policymakers' minds. Because people will just default. We've had the World Bank, we've had all these international institutions, OECD, and the unique thing about their programs is that, yes, they are applicable to maybe first world countries, but when it comes to South Africa, we have a unique challenge, and we need to deal with that. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Sagren. You've made 2 points that speak to another 2 speakers. So I'm going to first come to you, Mr. Ishmael Akarwaya, who's the Chief Director of EPWP, Sustainable Livelihoods. And you heard Sagren talk about lift and drop. And we completely understand the constraints of public employment programs that are time limited, but nevertheless play a critical role in unemployment solutions. And I wonder if you could reflect on your views on these 2 programs and the policy recommendations emerging and how that converges with the broader public employment space.
All right, well, thanks. I think the lift and drop thing is quite applicable to where we come from. So just again, context, the Expanded Public Works Program is a national program. The department doesn't have a regional or local footprint. Programs are implemented via public bodies. That could be municipalities, provinces, national departments, etc. So, there's a continuum of programs within the EPWP stable. Some of them are very short lift and drop programs, to use the word. But there are others that offer more access to exiting into sustainable opportunities. So, I think it's a bit difficult to pigeonhole what is an expanded public works program. We've got a program of cleaning and greening, which is about picking up litter in a park. But then you'll have programs like working on water, working for water, working on fire. The minister has just introduced a working on infrastructure program, which are 12 months long programs with exit opportunities, etc. So we'll continue our programs with EPWP. I think the question Joseph Willer asked, taking it to scale, I'm very keen to look at what is the ratio of these programs of coach to participant, and how do you expand that, and how do you take that to scale? I know we've got capacity within the labor centers, we've got capacity during the Department of Social Development, Social Welfare. How can we harness these capacities to reach more? So I think these programs, are really very valuable food for thought, and how it links to active labor market programs is where we need to make the link. So, it is opportunity first, the programs that we run, but I think how we match that with the person first is going to be the critical thing that we need to solve. So, yeah, I'm new into this environment, and I think where we can, as national government departments, come together and look at how our programs complement each other and add value, I think is going to be crucial. And these pilot projects that we are running give us some insight into how we can move forward. So from my perspective, I think this is very positive, but keen to know what is the ratio we need to take it to scale, and where does that capacity sit? Is it social development? Is it labor? Is it outside national government? How do we harness this capacity to basically reach the numbers we're trying to reach? Thanks.
Thank you very much. And then the other point that was made was really, and you've touched on it right now, is this coordination. And we know the presidency has been playing a very strong role in driving coordination, and I think has had significant successes in that domain. And I wonder whether you, Mr. Gabriel Badenhorst, who's in the office of the Deputy President, you've got this bird's eye view of what's going on and the current government interventions. And I wonder what your views are on looking at this from the ground of what coordination looks like for the person on the ground and what's going on in the national setting.
Yeah, I think so. I want to first say that I'm standing in for my chief director.
Okay.
So I'm going to speak from the two specific programs that the deputy president is responsible for, and then I'll talk to some of the bigger. So the deputy president, one of his responsibilities is the Human Resource Development Council. And this council has been around since 2010, and it focuses on issues primarily of human resource development. And it speaks to skills, it speaks to the relationship between our skills and development sector and our employment sectors, and bridging that gap as well through an advisory point of view. And so it is a coordinating body, and I think the issue of coordination, I think, is one of our biggest challenges across government, and there is a discussion on the HRDC side to improve the relationship that we have with other government departments, talking about DEL, DSD as well, and to make sure that there's a willingness among government departments and ministers to join and be coordinated through that structure in a better way. And I think that's the one structure. The other side is the PEP IMC, which, as far as I know, hasn't met yet. But they've met on a technical point of view. The PEP is Public Employment Programs IMC. Deputy President also chairs that. When we were preparing technical discussions for that IMC, I think this was one of the issues that was raised, that the employment, the President Youth Employment Initiative, the Harambee, and all of our other partners, there are hundreds of programs that are running at the same time. And I think the gap between the people on the ground and this employment initiative, I think, are one of the biggest issues. I'm not going to talk about the lift and drop side, but I think that gap between what is available and the people on the ground, I think, is one of our biggest gaps. And even with the HRDC, that's something that I think, from the strategy that they've developed, is one of the biggest gaps, because we can follow somebody from cradle to grave in the sense that we have the ECD centres, we have the, and work towards ECD centres, we have the continental learning, we have the high school learning, we have the PSET sector, but making sure that not only do they follow that route to make sure that they're educated and trained, but if they fall out, that missing middle then becomes part of the bigger structures. I think of the presentation today, one of the concerns that I had is that ratio of council to people. I think is on the scalability side, we're dealing with an issue on the employment side that is in the millions, tens of millions, and so it doesn't just require that government comes on board with the amount of councillors that are there. There isn't the money to do it. I think every department, National Treasury will be able to tell you, every department multiple times a year will come to them and say, we need a bigger budget. And the budget is just not there to then improve these areas. I think it's a constrained economy, it's massive government expenditure. And I think we need to understand the sustainability, but also the scalability. But one of the points that I want to make is that coordination is not just a matter of government departments. Private sector needs to come on board as well. The President's been pushing this over the last couple of years to say, how can we bring on board the private sector into this work? And so the program is already running, and I'm sure there's private sector support already. But I think there is a need to make sure that the private sector can assist with funding where there is a need for funding. And when you talk about the amount of counsellors you need, where there's a gap where DSD, DEL can no longer fill that gap within constrained budgets environments, where can private sector assist with providing either directly to the program or also running their own systems? In addition, the last one that I want to make is that there's when you're talking about this, I think there was a sector that was missing as well, and that's the religious sector. DP also works with the moral regeneration movement, we work with the faith sector, and I think they've come to us saying that we're available, we have the resources, we have the time, we have the capacity to fully implement the kind of counselling and social support that they have. But they're also hearing from the congregants of various religious faiths that, look, we're not getting employment. And they're looking for the churches and mosques and synagogues for that support. And I think they've come to us saying, we're here, please use us. I think it's something that I want to raise as well, is that how can we include the religious sector and the faith sector in addition to the social sectors and the government as well, and the private as well. So coordination needs to happen across society and not just at the government level.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Very important points then, and really important for young people, many of whom are very deeply connected to faith communities. So it is a very important point. And I do think that this point about scalability and financing of something like this is, of course, crucial. And there's more work to be done to figure out how far can you push that coach to participant ratio before it loses its effectiveness. But also, how do we triage the unemployment space? There are some people who are pretty close to the labour market who may have just lost a job, who don't need this kind of intensity of support. There's others who are really digitally savvy, who will get onto an SA-Youth.mobi or an ESSA and make their way through. And then there is and unfortunately it is quite a large, as you said, Brendan, at the beginning, quite a large sector that is very much excluded and would need to come in. I think, and I'm going to come to Mr. Fidelis Hove, who might not know that I'm going to be calling on him. But I think just to segue from this point about private sector investment, it's often the private sector wants to fund things that are the new thing and are the kind of sexy thing to fund. And some of those are really important. And Fidelis has been working very closely with government on My Digital Mzansi, or My Mzansi, the digital platform that is supposed to be coordinating government departments. And I think that is a really, really exciting platform that's going to revolutionize how people interact with government, and is something that I think private sector is very keen on. But how do we, and you don't have to answer the second question. Your first question would be, how do you see something like this fitting into that kind of initiative? And then I'm going to throw a question to everybody here is, how do we get the private sector on board to fund and finance something that really isn't seen as the new kid on the block? Human beings supporting other human beings to navigate a complex, precarious labor market is not a sexy sell to private sector investors. And so how do we make those cases? Is there an effort on the part of government to say, we see this as a priority and we want private sector partners to come alongside to support auxiliary social workers, psychologists, and child and youth care workers, community development practitioners who are sitting unemployed and have the skills needed. So Fidelis, I'll give you 2 minutes and then a quick round of input.
I don't know if I'm visible for those.
Maybe if you just come over here, there's microphones all the way around. So
you can stand in the middle of
this. No, I think I'll speak from here. Thanks for the ambush. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of the team that's been leading the National Digital Transformation Program in South Africa. So we're basically set up in the PMO, the Private Office of the President, where we've set up a digital services unit, and we've led a coordinated process to actually develop a roadmap for digital transformation in South Africa. A few things for I suppose this conversation that are important. The approach to looking at digital transformation actually started by looking at the individual identified in the NDP as I think the archetypal name is Tandi, that work-seeking young South African woman who has to navigate this maze of opportunities, etc. And looking at how we can have a coordinated approach to modernizing the technology systems that enable service delivery. What we realized when we went through that process of drafting that roadmap is that if you look at Tandi, and I think a lot of the elements that were sought were actually surfaced through the morning's conversation. There's the one problem that even when opportunities exist, Tandi doesn't know where these opportunities are, etc. So at the top of the digital transformation agenda is to create a seamless, low-cost capacity for Tandi to go on a website or on an application, web application, we're calling it Mamsansi, we've actually developed it, where all manner of opportunities from different quarters will be surfaced there, so that when Tandi goes in there, she logs in, she'll be able to see all these opportunities. But I think speaking to the point made earlier about starting with Tandi first as opposed to the opportunities, what we've developed or are in the process of enhancing on that application are a couple of things. Firstly, Tandi should be able to get onto that application and be authenticated that it is indeed Tandi. But more importantly, we are enabling that platform to be able to assess, based on a very simple set of questions, profiling, if you like, precisely what kind of services that Tandi can be referred to automatically using that digital platform. The second component is really thinking about how to reduce friction in terms of that work searching process. I think a number of studies have shown that at least 1,500 Rand is what a work seeker spends every month trying to navigate different opportunities. Part of the friction is to do with, for example, needing to certify documents for different application processes, etc. So we've profiled certain key documents that are part of that work search process that we think we can digitize, and with that digital version of the matric certificate, for example, work searching becomes much easier. Now, I'm speaking about things that are happening sort of at the services level. But to enable that, you actually need to build the digital infrastructure that allows data to be exchanged across different systems, across different departments. So we're working with Department of Employment and Labor, we're working with SASA so that these systems start to talk to each other. The referrals that I'm talking about are only enabled by having that kind of interoperability in terms of that. So there's a lot more I can speak to. And I think one of the key points in terms of sort of the role of the private sector, we've also established partnerships with different private sector entities to enable sort of both the building of infrastructure that's digital, that allows for this, but also in terms of enabling access points for the kind of support that we're talking about. But I think I want to end on the point that there's full acknowledgement that digital is not the answer. It's an enabler, but there are some core constraints and points like we mentioned earlier in the discussion that are key to keep in mind as we think about scale, etc. Digital is going to enable faster rollout, better service delivery, but it has to be part of a much wider conversation around how to scale some of the good work that's currently underway. Thanks.
Thank you so much. You responded very well considering you were ambushed. Let me, and our next policy brief is actually going to focus on digital and human support. So you'll have to look out for that. But let me throw it open to if there's any comments, or we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. So if there's anything anybody wants to put on the table before we hand back over to our program director. Yes.
No, thank you, Prof. I think I'll concur with Dr. Antoine. You know, we are working with NARESEC in the Sokoloma area. And then the issue of the long person, it came to me now. These 2 young ladies came to the films with young kids. And we asked ourselves, if they are taken through this program to Project Room in August, what happened to these kids? Yeah. Already we've judged them as not going to qualify for the program because we failed to pay the person herself. Yeah. I think if we had a linkage between us, was our role was just to give gender counseling, not the person herself. And also, they said, if you are in drugs, you won't qualify. So already that person needs some kind of coaching. And within our program is not there. I think, Dr. Anton, your program of knowing the person can assist us to close those gaps and also to minimize the issue of the dropouts. Because normally, if the person is coming in there desperate for an opportunity, the person herself does not know herself. Is there for the stipend or for the learning or whatever without knowing herself. I think that probably can assist us in the department. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mazibuko. Any other point? Oh, sorry, you were first. Okay.
Yeah, so thank you. Perhaps my contribution would start with an appeal to all of us to rephrase and perhaps reframe this idea of interventions by government being lifts and drops. Because I think then we are too hard on ourselves. Actually, what we call lift and drop interventions are actually social protection cushions.
Yeah.
And they are real cushions in a real sense. In social protection, you do need a cushion, because if you don't provide a cushion, you're going to have the majority who are going to fall through the cracks. The extent to which these cushions become more sustainable or short-term, it's only a matter of fiscal ability. What makes them temporary, it's simply the matter of budget ability. Should there be fiscal ability, the cushion can, go on much longer. I think what we need to perhaps look at and think about is how do we make little to go along the way? How do we integrate, all these short-term interventions that are available, right? By integrating them so that they allow us to go, a bit of a longer way. But for me, these are not, lift and drops. And I think because this also becomes an ideological viewpoint. If we keep referring to our intervention ourselves that way, then I think we are missing something very, very crucial. So I think integration would help us to go, a bit of a longer way.
Thank you.
For me, when I look at, for example, the policy brief today, I relate, I relate. But I think our issue is not, we don't have a problem of a policy vacuum. Our problem is policy coherence.
Yes.
We have interventions of a similar nature. Like when I'm listening to this policy brief, I can recall a number of interventions almost of a similar nature that are there. But then there is lack of coherency. That's why they end up becoming, stopgap measures. We just need to find a coherence at some point of all these, policies that we have. Thanks.
So perhaps instead of calling them lift and drop, we should be calling them trampolines. They come down. That's what we're aiming for.
Yes.
We've got one hand there over here, and then one online, and then I'm afraid we'll have to close there. Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to stand because I'm a bit short.
Don't you want to come closer so that the people online can hear you?
Good morning, everyone. So I represent the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention. And I just wanted to piggyback on the last comment. I mean, we have a big job to do. One is to help the President to deliver the 2 million target jobs that he has pronounced. And we are working with partners, implementing partners to enable this. And so, as Anthony says, well, the shift has to be that it has to be the person first and then the opportunity last. We are in a conundrum because we are creating the opportunities, thinking that the agency from young people will come and that they will then take these opportunities. And so, as we are grappling with the question about, the ratio of coaches to the unemployed youth, especially the net number that keeps on growing every year, is that for us, we say, well, how do we then allow young people to actually see these as pathways and not pick and drop or whatever the term has been this morning? Because for us, we're saying we want you to actually look at opportunities in that way so that we are creating these pathways so that it is a pathway to a formal or informal opportunity that may lend itself into a permanent job. But as the CEO opened in his remarks, is that we cannot wait for economic growth to be at least 5-6% where we should be growing. And so as we are challenged by this low economic growth environment, is that we're also trying to create these opportunities, but the opportunities that exist are very short term. And we do acknowledge that they are precarious in nature, but that is the nature of the environment that we find ourselves in. And so as we want to create these sustainable livelihoods, we are coming up with certain interventions. One of them is being that the President had announced that he will be introducing a livelihood grant. And so there are all of these interventions. And I mean, DG, our plea is that we actually do collaborate because we are doing a whole lot. And we are trying to solve for this mammoth challenge in front of us, which is the growing unemployment rate. And so it looks like we're not doing it, but at the same time, I think the reframing allows us to think about how do we support young people to navigate this crisis. And so we should not allow ourselves to also think about, well, these jobs are short-term or they're precarious. We should also support young people in how they reframe, how they see opportunities to say, well, while I'm unemployed, I may just find myself in an EPW program that may land myself in a formal employment job, or I can actually pivot into self-employment. What I have been tasked to do is to actually support young people in unemployment, and we're working with implementing partners to ensure that these programs are enabled. But we need partners as well. So private sector has to come into play. And we should invite private sector. The framing of this problem becomes quite important. We should say to them, we are creating opportunities as short-term as they will be. We want your support. Yeah. And so that is my plea this morning to say, can we reframe this as pathways? As short and quick as they may be, young people need to also understand that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tulibona. And I was remiss in not calling on you because I've only ever met Tulibona online. And she was hiding in the corner. I'm very grateful that you came and spoke. And I do think that's a really important point, is that these short-term opportunities are stepping stones. But I think that what we are trying to show is that young people need the guidance to place those stepping stones together into something that's longer term and more sustainable. Yeah. I'm looking at you for guidance on time because we have 3 hands.
We've blown our budget. We've blown our budget now. I wonder if we can move. Maybe we need more conversation like this. Right? Maybe we allocated too little time. Yes. But I think we're going to debate these issues for a long, long time. And yeah, I'm asking that we move on.
That's fine.
So that we respect people's time.
I apologize.
Sorry
and
about
to Nombula and Des online. Yes. But I'll hand back to the program director. Thank you.
Yes, no, so sorry for being the spoiler. Let me just look at the agenda. Okay, let's go. That was an interesting discussion, and I've noted down some core issues that we need to either feed into the next policy brief or have further conversations about. But I just wanted to share one practical experience that we've had around this issue about pathways. Is we partnered with Seriti on the youth, the NYS. Now they have, is it 4 or 6 months? 6 months they give them a stipend and put them into some training. Seriti came to us and we put 100 young people onto their program. Some of them were able to save some of their stipends and invest in a micro business, which when they finished the 6 months, they continued in the GBL program, which is 24 months before you graduate. So that's how a practical way in which these programs can complement each other. It's almost like embedding a short-term program in a longer-term program that provides some support after the 6-month stipend and work that they receive. And that model is something that I think we want to track and to develop more, because what we do is provide them with the confidence training, but also financial inclusion training around how do you manage your finances better to be able to sustain yourself beyond 6 months. Don't spend all that money because there's going to be a cliff that you'll follow. So that's, for me, just thinking about practically from the ground, how do you integrate some of these programs is what we need to be thinking about more. And hopefully we can share more of these practical local experiences to feed into the issues around coordinating and complementing different programs so they work better for young people. Anyway, this is very exciting. I've got so many points here which we don't have time to go into. The issue about scaling and the ratio, I think there's experience internationally, the work for our partners. We've looked at India, visited India, in fact, Bangladesh as well. And of course, we need to adapt. Yeah. And the digital capacity needs to help to manage that as well. And that's the conversation we need to come back to. But on our program, we now have, thank you for all the contributors, by the way. It was great contributions. And thanks for facilitating it so well. Our next item on the agenda is a way forward by Professor Ariane Delanoy. She's online. Ariane, are you ready?
I am here. I am here.
Show us your face.
One moment. I'm about to show you my face.
Okay.
Needed to find the right button. Hello, everybody.
Hey.
Good to see you all. I'm sorry I'm not there in person. would you like me to dive straight in?
Over to you. Yes, please.
Well, I mean, firstly, a huge thank you for organizing this session, Lauren and Brendan, and for allowing me to be here online, and for all of the colleagues there in the room. It's really encouraging to see so many of the different departments represented, and the presidency. And as I'm sitting here listening, it's an interesting experience listening from a distance and online, because it kind of gives me this almost ethnographic peep into what the thoughts are in the room. I think it's been quite remarkable listening to this body of evidence and learnings that's coming out across programs that have been developed independently and implemented independently, and it's quite remarkable that they also that the findings relate and are in line with what the international body of evidence is saying. Brendan, you referred to that in the beginning as well, and you just referred to it again now when thinking about scale. What I think is encouraging to me was to hear the reflections of the different departments: Department of Social Development, Department of Employment and Labour, the Public Works programs, that there really is a recognition of the need for these kinds of programs and approaches, and to think much more carefully about integration and coordination. I heard the question about scale. It's one that's regularly thrown our way. And often what I wonder then is what is scale? If scale is not necessarily managing to really shift the dial, then what is scale? So how can we think about scale, and this relates for me to the way forward, how can we think about scale in a way that does allow for these programs and these approaches to come online at scale, but to do so in a way that would be that would take into account the need for careful resource allocation and coordination. And so I think one of the things that we need to work harder on collaboratively is to understand these, we refer to them as different profiles of vulnerability, because if we better understand who needs what intensity of support and what kind and what combination of support, then we can better target where these resources go. Not every young person or person is going to need the same intensity of coaching and support all the time. It really is a matter of thinking about who is this person, what opportunity and services are best fit for them, so that we don't lose the investment both on the side of government and on the side of young people and their families for connecting to an opportunity that then doesn't really help them really create a pathway to sustainable livelihood. So if we start from the perspective of the person and their skills and their needs and their aspirations, and we are able to better target the support services and the pathways to that particular person, then we don't see the investment trickle away as much as what we often see now through the churn. So I've heard the many different terms for this, the lift and drop and the trampoline, but really it's churn from the side of young people through constant short-term opportunities, and then back to not knowing, and back very often to a sense of hopelessness and a sense of despair, because young people, as all of us in the room, online or in real time, want to be able to see a path forward. They want to be able to create a sustainable life and adulthood for themselves so that they can contribute to their families and their societies. So how do we do that? How do we help flatten the churn so that we don't have the trickling away of the investment? And our belief is that we can do that if we better understand who these people are who are looking for work. So the way forward would be what can we draw from the evidence base of these different programs that helps us understand A, the profile of the people who require a certain combination and intensity of support, B, how do we then best guide them to the stacked opportunities or the stacked pathway, and how do we then tweak the systems so that they begin to provide support networks along or in between the short-term opportunities. So I think one of the things, Brendan, we've spoken about in a previous conversation is the need to work on that understanding of the profiling. It's also a piece of work that Fidelis and the team are working on with the digital transformation roadmap to then, in a more targeted way, pathway people through services and opportunities. I think another piece in the way forward is the thinking about how we gather information and how we use that information really about the longer term trajectories of people who access these programs, so that, again, we can adjust the services of various different departments and we can support the services of different departments, so that fewer people continue to fall through the cracks of the different pieces. I heard the question, and I cannot remember who asked it. Okay, but so now what? How do we really work towards coordination? And it seems to me that perhaps one of the best ways to learn is with a select set of departments, right? That through the piloting and the attempts to integrate and coordinate and really learn as we go, we end up dealing with the elephant in small bites at a time. Brendan mentioned the need, and I heard it also, I think, from the colleague at the presidency, the need to think about this as an all of society and an all of government approach. So it really requires us to think about how we work at different levels of governance. It's not only at the national level, it is also at the provincial and the community level. But how do we learn that just by beginning to look at pilots with a select number of departments so that we can carefully craft it and then tweak as we go along. And I think the last point I would like to make is an invitation to everybody in the room to not, it feels like such an urgent problem, right? It's massive. We've got hundreds of thousands of young people needing support, as Sagren said, all the time. But the risk is that we then continue to think short-term solutions, whereas really what we're hoping to create, I think, is a society where people feel more supported and included and are able to create more stable livelihoods for themselves. And that does require a longer-term view, which I think is almost counterintuitive for many of the policy and intervention environments that we work in, because we want to resolve things now. But I think the invitation is to try and look almost like our coaches do with young people. What's the longer term trajectory and what are the steps we need to take to get to that longer term aim, so that we don't keep ourselves churning through the short term opportunities that don't then create the stability further down the line. I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Ariane. I think what is, obviously we'll produce some kind of report from this conversation and highlight the key things that we need to be focusing on. This has been very useful for us in our subsequent series and the kind of research that we're doing to learn from this program. So that's great. The vote of thanks, we've come to the end. DG, thank you very much for making the time and staying with us. I know you've got 100 things in your head, and now you must think about putting people first here as well, challenges. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for all of you who have made the time to come and share with us and engage. This is an ongoing process, so what next is we continue to learn and we'll continue to generate the kind of learnings and share them with you. But we also welcome you to come and visit some of the pilot sites, so that you can engage directly with the coaches and with the participants and understand for yourself how this potentially works. It's very useful to do that because it gives you a sense of what is required at that local level where they are, not in Joburg, but in Oppermansgronde, which is in the middle of the rural Free State. What is it going to take to support young people in this environment as opposed to in environments that we may be used to? So thank you very much for making that time. Thank you to Lauren and Ariane for agreeing to come together and collaborate around this thing. One of the things I see in this space is a lot of competition between institutions. I'm doing this, I'm doing better. The problem is so big. There's space for all of us to work, and in fact, all of us have to work in this space. It's about how we collaborate, and I think we've made a good start by bringing institutions together that weren't working together into one, and looking at how do we consolidate our learnings going forward. But I just wanted to make a commercial here. We're talking about the financial sector, bringing the financial sector in. We constantly are engaging with financial sector players. But one of the things we've done is to launch a crowdfunding campaign to fund and provide assets for some of the participants that are coming through. Some have received. NYDA has given 20 already, I think almost R1 million now, for different micro business operations. But we thought we need to engage the broader South African and global population for those who want to give, to provide them with that platform. So it's a Thunder Fund campaign. We will share it with you. Many of the people I know, they say thumbs up on LinkedIn, great campaign, but you don't see the money coming through. They're not opening their wallets and put the money in. I'm hoping that doesn't happen with all of you here. When you receive it, please. And people are giving 250, 500 bucks. We've got 6 that we've profiled on the campaign. You'll see them, what they're doing, what their business is, what they need, and hoping that we can generate more support to provide assets to them. So thank you very much for attending this session. Sorry, I didn't forget, thank the team that actually worked on the brief. So Anthony, I don't know where he is there, he's sitting there with his team. I forget the name of it. Koliso. My colleague Lungisani Pumelele is at the back there as well, and Sipati and Motaba, who shared your experiences with us. We value that. We don't take it for granted. It's really an important voice in that we need to elevate in this policy conversation. So thank you very much, and look forward to the next brief as well as the next engagement. And thanks for your giving us this lovely venue and some food and snacks to make sure. We don't take that for granted anyway. So there are snacks and a light lunch there. Please partake and network, because we all have to work together. Let's get to know each other. Right? Yeah. Thank you very much. And thanks for the online participants.